The atmosphere in the office was very calming. Marcus told her to go to the table and lean on her elbows. Lilith had always been a recalcitrant woman, but she was happy to obey this man. She felt hot breath on her neck, and a second later, Lilith couldn't stop staring at him. Every time her husband dragged her to another one of those company parties, she told herself she would behave. But the moment Marcus entered the room, tall, broad-shouldered, every inch of him commanding attention, all her promises to herself melted away. At 55, he carried himself like a man who had seen everything and still expected the world to bow at his feet. And it did, including her. That night in Los Angeles, under the velvet glow of the rooftop lights, he caught her staring. Lilith felt the heat rush to her cheeks, but she didn't look away. Instead, she lifted her glass, a silent, reckless toast across the crowded terrace. Marcus's lips curled into a slow, devastating smile, and for a moment, it felt like no one else existed. Not the colleagues, not her husband standing a few feet away chatting about stocks, not the music, not the city stretching out behind them like a glittering dream. Later, when the party thinned out and the night turned heavy and slow, he found her again. She was leaning against the railing, the silk of her dress clinging to her curves, pretending to watch the city lights. But her body buzzed with the knowledge that he was close. So close. His voice, low and smooth like velvet, brushed against her ear. "You don't belong here, Lilith," he said, and every word felt like a fingertip tracing down her spine. She turned her head just enough to meet his gaze. Dark, intense, full of things they weren't supposed to say out loud. "Where do I belong, then?" she asked, her voice softer than she meant it to be, loaded with challenge, with invitation. Marcus smiled again, slow and knowing. "I'll show you." An hour later, Lilith sat in the passenger seat of his sleek black car, her heart pounding in her throat. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She already knew where this was going. She wanted it. She craved it. She let the thrill of it pulse through her, let it curl and spark low in her belly. His house was perched high above the city, hidden behind tall gates and a long driveway. When he led her inside, she barely noticed the expensive furniture, the grand staircase, the walls lined with art. All she saw was him, powerful, magnetic, completely in control. He didn't waste time. The door had barely clicked shut behind them when he turned to her, closing the space between them with slow, deliberate steps. Lilith's breath caught. His hands found her waist, large and firm, and he pinned her gently against the wall with nothing but the weight of his presence. She tilted her chin up, daring him, wanting him to take what they both knew she was offering. Marcus's thumb brushed her lower lip, a touch so soft it made her whole body tense with anticipation. He leaned in, his mouth ghosting over hers without quite kissing her, teasing, making her ache for it. When he finally kissed her, it was nothing gentle. It was acclaiming, a fire that roared to life between them. Lilith moaned into his mouth, her hands sliding up his chest, feeling the hard muscles beneath his tailored suit. She should have felt guilt. She should have thought of her husband. But all she could feel was pleasure. A wicked, intoxicating pleasure that shot through her veins like electricity. He pulled her tighter, lifting her slightly off the floor as he deepened the kiss, and she clung to him, her body burning where it pressed against his. She had never been kissed like this before, not with such command, such hunger, such absolute certainty that she would fall apart under his hands. And she wanted to. God, she wanted to. Marcus pulled back just enough to look at her, his hand sliding up her thigh, pushing the silk of her dress higher. "You're mine tonight," he murmured, and Lilith shivered at the raw truth in his voice. She nodded, breathless, surrendering to the inevitable. As he led her deeper into the house, his hand firm on the small of her back, Lilith realized something thrilling. She wasn't just cheating on her husband. She was choosing herself, choosing this need, this hunger, this moment that was burning away everything polite and proper inside her. And she had never felt more alive. Marcus didn't rush. He walked her through the wide, dimly lit hallway with slow, steady steps, his hand never leaving her body. Each touch, each brush of his fingers against her skin, made Lilith's breath hitch in her throat. She wasn't thinking about anything anymore. Not about her husband, not about the life waiting for her back at home. All she could feel was the delicious tension pulling tighter and tighter between them. He led her into a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. The room smelled like leather and something dark, masculine. Marcus stopped in the center, turned to face her and, without a word, slid his fingers under the straps of her dress. Lilith let it fall without protest, the silk whispering down her body and pooling at her feet. She stood there in nothing but her heels, the cool air brushing over her flushed skin, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Marcus's gaze travelled over her slowly, drinking her in, and Lilith felt powerful under his eyes, desired, worshipped. He undid his cufflinks, the simple motion sending another wave of heat through her. Every move he made was deliberate, controlled like he had all the time in the world to enjoy her. And he would. She could tell. He came closer, his hands strong as they gripped her waist, and he backed her up until the window pressed cool against her bare skin. Lilith gasped at the contrast, the cold glass, the hot press of his body. But she didn't pull away. She arched into him instead, her body hungry for more. His mouth found her neck, slow savoring, and she tilted her head to give him better access. Every kiss he laid on her skin felt like a brand, marking her, claiming her. She knew it was wrong. She knew this was betrayal in its purest form. And it thrilled her. She felt drunk on it, on him, on the way he touched her like he already owned her. Marcus's hands slid lower, gripping her thighs, lifting her effortlessly. She wrapped her legs around his waist, feeling the hard line of his body against hers. And her head fell back against the window with a soft, helpless moan. He kissed her again, rougher this time, and Lilith gave herself over to it completely. No shame, no second-guessing. "You taste like trouble," he murmured against her mouth, his voice rough and deep. "I am," she whispered back, grinning wickedly. Marcus laughed, a low, dark sound that vibrated through her whole body, and then he carried her across the room like she weighed nothing. He set her down gently on a huge leather couch, his body covering hers, and for a moment he just looked at her, sprawled out, waiting for him. Lilith felt powerful in her surrender, in the way she had chosen this, chosen him. Her hands roamed over his broad shoulders, feeling the strength there, the raw masculinity that made her dizzy. He kissed her again, slower now, dragging it out, making her ache for more. His hands explored her body with a patience that drove her wild, mapping her curves, tracing the lines of her waist, her hips, her thighs. Every touch was a reminder of how alive she was, how much she had craved this without even knowing it. It wasn't just the forbidden thrill that had her burning. It was Marcus himself. The way he moved, the way he held her like she was precious and breakable, even as he made her fall apart, piece by piece. She buried her hands in his hair, pulling him closer, wanting to lose herself in him, in the way he made her feel like no one else had ever touched her before. It was more than passion. It was something deeper, hotter, something that lit up every nerve in her body and left her gasping for more. When Marcus finally pulled back to look at her, his thumb brushed across her swollen lips, and the look in his eyes made her tremble. Possession, desire, admiration. He saw her, not just her body but her hunger, her need to be claimed, to be chosen, and she let him have it all. Marcus didn't hesitate anymore, his mouth claimed hers again, rougher this time with a hunger that made Lilith's whole body tighten beneath him. She clutched at him, pulling him closer, needing him closer, feeling every inch of his strength pressing her deeper into the couch. Her heart hammered against her ribs, wild and reckless, matching the rhythm of his hands moving over her skin like he couldn't get enough. Lilith moaned into his kiss, overwhelmed by how right this felt. the heat, the power, the complete abandon. She knew she was lost, knew she wasn't just crossing a line, she was burning it to the ground. And it felt so good. Every kiss, every touch was a rebellion against the safe, boring life she had built with her husband. A life that never made her heart race, never made her knees weak like Marcus did with just a look. He lifted her hips, strong hands gripping her with the kind of confidence that made her body respond without thinking. She surrendered completely, melting into his touch, aching for more, needing more. His mouth found her collarbone, then her shoulder, his breath hot against her skin, leaving a trail of fire wherever he kissed her. "Look at me," Marcus growled against her ear. Lilith forced her eyes open, meeting his. What she saw there stole the air from her lungs, pure, raw possession. It wasn't just lust, it was something deeper, darker, something that claimed her soul just as much as her body. She whimpered, a soft, desperate sound she didn't even recognize as her own, and Marcus smiled like he knew exactly how undone she was. His hand slid between them, and when he touched her, Lilith arched off the couch with a soft cry, her fingers digging into his shoulders. Pleasure ripped through her, sharp and sweet and overwhelming. She gasped his name, her voice breaking with the force of it, and he captured her mouth again, swallowing her moans like he needed them to breathe. Every nerve in her body was on fire, every inch of her skin, hypersensitive to his touch, his kiss, his rough whisper against her ear. She wrapped her legs tighter around his waist, anchoring herself to him, desperate to hold on to the feeling of being completely consumed. He moved inside her slowly at first, deliberately, making her feel every inch of him, every slow, deep thrust that left her trembling and gasping for air. Her nails raked down his back, her head falling back against the arm of the couch, her whole body arching into his with helpless need. "Mine," Marcus growled against her throat, and Lilith nodded, unable to speak, tears burning at the corners of her eyes from the sheer intensity of it. She wasn't thinking about her husband anymore. She wasn't thinking about anything but Marcus, the way he made her feel alive, wanted, worshipped in a way she had never known she needed until now. Every movement, every kiss, every sound between them drove her higher, closer to the edge. When she finally shattered, it was like nothing she had ever experienced. A wave of pleasure so intense, it left her sobbing his name against his shoulder, her whole body shaking in his arms. Marcus followed her over the edge moments later, holding her so tightly it felt like he was fusing them together. They collapsed together on the couch, bodies tangled, breathing hard, the world outside the windows blurring into meaningless lights. Marcus pressed a kiss to her forehead, slow and tender, his big hands stroking up and down her back like he couldn't bear to let her go. Lilith lay against him, feeling the rise and fall of his chest, the steady beat of his heart under her ear. She had never felt so full, so alive, so utterly destroyed and rebuilt all at once. Guilt tried to creep in, tried to whisper that what she had done was unforgivable, but it was drowned out by the way Marcus held her, by the way her body still hummed with satisfaction, by the deep, aching truth that she had finally found what she had been starving for, not just passion, not just possession, but something real. As the night stretched on, Marcus didn't let her go, and Lilith knew deep in her bones she wasn't going back. Not to the cold house she shared with a man who barely saw her, not to the life where she had to pretend to be happy. She had tasted something too raw, too beautiful to ever pretend again, and she was never going to let it go.